Have you ever thought, wow, I love the design of my Analog Pocket, but it's just too big? Well, if you have, you're in luck, because the TrimUI brick borrows heavily from the FPGA console's design while offering some welcome updates to an undeniably pocketable package. It's incredibly stylish while showing that TrimUI's design language can best the bigger players in the market. However, with such a compact device comes a few compromises that may not be ideal for folks looking to push the handheld past its strengths. Luckily, LitNXT was kind enough to send me a review sample so that I can lay out the details for you to see if it's the kind of device you want to play on. Starting with the design. As I mentioned, it's pretty much a scale copy of the Analog Pocket's design, down to the accented seafoam power button. However, kind of like how the TrimUI Smart Pro built on the PSP's general shape, the brick goes hard in differentiating itself. For starters, while the brick has a similar textured plastic shell to the original Pocket, there's a metal backplate above the shoulders. It's a small touch that likely aids in heat dissipation, but it also makes the device feel just a tad bit more premium whenever I pick it up. There's also 4 separate sources of RGB on this device: the 2 function buttons up front, a light bar on top, some underglow for the shoulder buttons, and a charging light below the power button. Use of lights here is honestly done quite well. With the default settings, they change color to vibe with the console being emulated. Their behavior can then be changed in settings even further, and if I ever get tired of them, I can just flick the remappable function key on top to shut them off completely. It all feels very thoughtful in execution. The same goes for those USB-C ports. The typical charging port is kept on the bottom, whereas the secondary data port is hidden between the shoulder buttons. One gripe I've had with many of these handhelds is when 2 ports are included side by side and it's not immediately clear which one handles charging. Using the design of the handheld to place the secondary port in a place that's accessible but enough out of the way to not make me wonder is fantastic. Unlike some other handhelds in my collection, it really feels like someone used this device during development and polished the design to be more user-friendly. Unfortunately, I don't quite mesh with the controls as much as the overall design. Both the D-pad and action buttons are pretty much ripped straight from the Smart Pro. However, they feel just a bit softer on the brick, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Don't get me wrong, they feel good to use in general. Action buttons feel easy to use. The D-pad feels remarkably precise while being easy to roll. I have to really force it to get an unintentional input. It's just that they lack that little bit of extra tactile feedback from the Smart Pro that would have made button presses feel just a bit more responsive. The same's sort of true for the shoulders. They have a nice click, but are maybe a bit too firm for my liking. Although, given the games the brick is actually good at, shoulders aren't necessarily a huge focus anyway. TrimUI also included a few different shoulder cap options in the box to customize feel a bit, so I honestly can't complain too much beyond those small nitpicks. I'm confident most folks who pick one of these up are going to have a pretty solid time with controls here. Which naturally brings us to the most important topic. What kind of games folks will actually want to play on the brick? Naturally, the brick's most comfortable with pre-N64 and pre-PSP, with a good chunk of the PS1's library thrown in for balance. Not that it can't handle those systems, the brick shares its chipset with the Smart Pro and can similarly handle Dreamcast, PS1, and PSP, and a good chunk of N64 quite well. It's just the games requiring more inputs than on offer might feel a bit awkward to play. Though TrimUI did put a nifty toggle within easy reach to convert the D-pad inputs into joystick inputs where necessary. If there's a game folks want to play that uses a joystick, but not the D-pad, it could be a great compromise without fiddling with remapping the emulator. In those cases, it might just come down to whether the games feel okay to play with only 8 directions of input. Still, at that point, you are kind of forcing the brick into a situation it wasn't designed to handle. With no thumbsticks and a 3.2-inch 4x3 display, it's very much aimed at, say, SNES or pre-DualShock PS1 games. And for that, it's pretty fantastic. At a resolution of 1024 by 768, That tiny display looks impressively sharp when playing 4x3 consoles. To put that into context, the larger Anbernic RG35XX-SP and RG40XX-V only have lower resolution 640 by 480 displays. While I don't think most folks would be too disappointed with Anbernic's displays, the brick clearly has a huge advantage in perceived quality side by side. Although naturally emulating other aspect ratios may not be ideal for purists. While entirely playable, the large black bars around Game Boy Color games aren't great. Meanwhile, Game Boy Advance isn't half bad, but still does shrink the usable screen real estate a bit. Which, 3.2 inches is pretty small already. Any smaller would probably be uncomfortable to use as more than a gimmick. However, it is worth noting that 4x3 and 3x2 aspect ratios are close enough that stretching Game Boy Advance games to fill the brick's small display doesn't actually look terrible. I've enjoyed playing that way myself. It's just not necessarily ideal if you're looking to emulate the original experience as closely as possible. Now, before we wrap things up, let's take a moment to talk software. My device came pre-installed with CrossMix OS. As on the Smart Pro, it's probably one of the best experiences I've had on these cheaper handhelds. It's aesthetically pleasing, customization, except for the home menu options, is more than enough for my needs, and, well, jumping into a game from startup is insanely quick. In fact, this version automatically loads save states on startup. If I shut down in the middle of a game, it'll automatically create a save state and resume where I left off on restart. Likewise, when I close out of a game, it'll remember my place when I next launch the game. It has been a little awkward for my muscle memory when I've wanted to purposefully restart a game, but for a device begging to be played in short bursts, I couldn't ask for a more convenient way to play. The problem is that, as of this video, CrossMix OS hasn't released a version that officially supports the TrimUI brick. While it works great on my device, and will likely work on yours if you get CrossMix pre-installed, it's hard for me to know what will change with the final official release, and it's hard for me to recommend installing CrossMix at the moment. Although, do expect to see a pinned comment down below when official support is live, as well as any impressions if anything happened to change. Still, even with that small hiccup, the TrimUI brick is a very compact device with a great design and premium feel far beyond its price point. Each 4x3 system shines on its comparatively high resolution display. Meanwhile, the controls and save state boosted software feel ideal for short gameplay bursts on my daily commute. For folks who maybe can't get comfortable with such a tiny device or want to play systems with different aspect ratios, there are obviously better options available. TrimUI's own Smart Pro still reigns as one of the best feeling handhelds of this price range, while Anbernic's RG Cube XX has surprised me with its own comfort for Game Boy Color games. The brick's going to be best for the type of person looking for something that'll fit in most pockets, doesn't care about systems that use joysticks, and just really likes a well-designed handheld. If that sounds like you, I'm positive you'll have a great time with the TrimUI brick. Those are my thoughts though. Now, I'd love to know yours. Are you interested in picking up a TrimUI brick for yourself? Or have you already picked one up and have thoughts of your own? Let me know down in the comments. And also, let me know in particular if you're on the stock OS. I'd be interested to know how that feels to you, since I've actually avoided it twice now on the TrimUI handhelds. But anyway, as always, if you found this video helpful or informative, go ahead and give it a like to let me know, and then get subscribed for more handheld reviews in the future. This video was made possible thanks to a review sample provided by LitNXT. Beyond asking that I show off their website in this video, they had no editorial input into the making of this video. They're watching it for the first time, alongside y'all. If you're interested in picking up a TrimUI brick for yourself, I'll have a link to their store down in the video description, alongside a discount code. If you'd like to see more reviews on devices they've sent me in the past, maybe take a look at the TrimUI Smart Pro and Anbernic RG Cube XX reviews I posted not too long ago. That's going to be all for this video though. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end, and until next time, catch you later.